And welcome to WSA-TV. I'm Laura Rubenstein, hosting the Premier Women show here at Women Speakers Association. And today, oh my gosh, we have incredible experts who are going to kind of walk us through when you face unfair or unfortunate circumstances. How do you rise? How do you become a leader? And in fact, an inspirational leader. Can you leverage those circumstances? You bet. And we're going to talk to our experts today. So let's go say hi to them and, just have some fun with this. So hi, Valeriana.
Hi, everybody. My name is Valeriana Chicote Bondwa Estes, and I'm a racial equity strategist. I'm the founder of Necessary Interruptions, and my website is necessaryinterruptionsllc.com.
Welcome, Valeriana. And hi, Jackie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Chavez. I'm an author, speaker, and life coach. You can find me at lifeofvictoryllc.com, and I'm here in the Atlanta, Georgia area.
Welcome, Jacqueline. And hi, Renee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renee Kessler, and I'm a business adventure coach, speaker, and best-selling author. And you can find me at reneekessler.com, and I'm out of the Denver, Colorado area.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here. And hi, Michelle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Davidson. I'm a life strategist, an author, a speaker, and a mortgage professional. You can find me at michelledavidson.life, and I'm here in the Rhode Island area.
Okay, we've got the whole country covered here. Like, lovely. I'm here in San Diego, and I am thrilled to have each of you here because each of you are an inspirational leader to me. And I was hoping that each of you could share with me and our viewers today what advice you have, how to become a leader despite any unfair or unfortunate circumstances. And Valeriana, I think this is the perfect question to start with you with.
Well, thank you. I would say I actually start with the fact that when we look throughout history, great causes, missions often birth in challenging eras and periods of time. And oftentimes, I think that we're taught to believe that when conditions are challenging, that's sometimes the opportunity to kind of step back. But I would actually really put an onus out to everybody who's watching this that when you are living through perilous times or times that seem uncertain, that's exactly the moment when you should lean into your skill sets, and you probably most likely will find your passions there.
I love that idea of leaning into your skill set. So if somebody wanted to do that and they're in a challenging situation, where should they start?
I think start with what you know and who you also know. Oftentimes, there's this idea that you need to search or be in contact with people that they may not actually be in close proximity or community with you. So it could start off as simply as if you're a writer and you've always, been challenged to maybe I should write, maybe I should write. Well, maybe during this pandemic period, they could be some time, even if it's 15 minutes, you're setting aside time to write, whether it is writing something that is speaking directly to the moment that you're living in, or something that you see future audiences leaning into. I think that we tend to sometimes not leverage opportunities that are presented to us that are, I would say, disguised as work. But leaning in towards that, I really think honestly is the key towards really walking towards what it is you're really called for. Because your passion often correlates or exists with something that oftentimes bothers you or something that you're not seeing around you. And so oftentimes I would say like lean into that specifically. I think that might actually speak volumes to you.
That's brilliant to lean into what those passion areas or those challenges are, because that's where you're going to be able to lead. Beautiful. And how about you, Jacqueline?
I would say believe in yourself, similar to what we just heard. Believe in yourself, have faith, and stay in action. Having overcome some challenging times myself as a struggling single mom, and just working and pouring into myself and my daughter. Actually, and my daughter was my motivation. So I really love working with single moms in particular, but just realizing that you have what it takes to win. It's within you. And, you know, pushing myself forward to stay learning, being willing to learn new things, to reach out, to grow. And through the challenges that I've been able to overcome and developing my own business and becoming an entrepreneur and an author and really standing in my own truth. That's what I would say for other people because I've done it myself. I would say when you realize the power that you have within you, it does catapult you to the next level. And surrounding yourself with other positive people is always a good way to go. When in doubt, reach out
I
and
love that.
stay in action. Stay in action.
Wow, what a chock full of good advice here. And I love that when in doubt, reach out and know that you have skills and you have the resilience to do things. And if, Jackie, you can do it, everybody can do it, right? Why not? So thank you for your passion and wisdom. And Renee, how about you? What advice would you give listeners about, overcoming unfair circumstances to become an inspiring leader?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think because my background is so much in the outdoor adventure field, and I've been doing this for many years, I won't say how many, but many years. And so much of what I have taught, my former career I was a professor of outdoor education. And what I would teach oftentimes is to get students and people out of their familiar, out of their comfort zone. And in addition to that, when people are out of their comfort zone, they have to take some risks. And risks are frightening and scary for people. And generally, people like the comfort. It's like being surrounded by a bunch of cotton balls, and it feels good on the skin. But what happens when you step out of that, it's a little unscary, it's a little uncertain. It is an opportunity for people to grow when they're taking some risks to step out of their comfort zone. So it's a matter of believing in yourself. I like what Jacqueline was saying. Certainly believing yourself, having faith to move to the next level. I know what it means to climb a mountain. I know what it means to put one foot in front of the other. And that is moving to the next level so that you get to your desire and your summit. I see a huge difference between a want and a desire. And if you're a desire, you have up-leveled a want. And it comes from within. You can call it a passion, you can call it a calling, you can call it a goal, but a desire is something so deep and so powerful that once you tap into it, the world's the limit. The world just opens up to what you want to achieve.
It sure does. And I like the idea of this, the analogy of the mountain, climbing the mountain. It makes me think of Valeriana, how you said, lean in, because when you're stepping up a mountain, you really are leaning, you're tilting forward, right? You got to walk forward in that and to take on the challenge and know your passions. And like Jackie said, you don't have to do this alone. You can get help to do it. So Michelle, bring us home here and tell us what advice you have about becoming an inspirational leader despite unfortunate or unfair circumstances.
So my life, sometimes you have to learn to laugh at yourself, first of all, because at the age of 28, I opened a mortgage company coming from really humble beginnings and saying that if I could help my community grow, and inspire them through my business and through the work I did with them, I opened a mortgage company. And in that time, my husband would be just doing something simple as playing basketball. The valve from his heart came apart. And then at the same time, I'm a woman who was told I wouldn't have children. So I was blessed to have a son. And now I found out I'm pregnant again with twins. And all of this has happened at the same time while I'm dealing with the financial crisis from 2008 and still trying to recover as a woman-owned business. All of that happened April. I had to close a mortgage company. May, I had to sit by my husband's side for open heart surgery. And in June, I had to deliver twins. So there comes a time in your life that it starts with this. You got to make a decision. You got to make a decision whether I'm gonna die in ashes or am I gonna rise in this occasion. So when I looked at my situation, my natural self is saying this seems impossible. but I made the decision to win. So when I made the decision that I was coming out and I leaned heavily on my faith and said, with God, this is possible, I pushed forward, not knowing what the next step should be, but it started with the mindset. If I'm going to win, I'm going to first receive the fact that I'm a winner and I'm coming out successfully.
Yes, thank you. You brought it home beautifully. And so here's what I'm kind of putting all together with all of your wisdom. You know, you lean into that challenge, you respect it, and you use it for your benefit by claiming the desire, right? That declaring that desire, the difference between desire, you reach out for help, you take action, as Jackie said as well, and you make the decision, as Michelle was saying, to get it done. And like, there's no turning back. It's almost like, you know, when the Apollo space station, the Apollo rocket was on there, it's like, there is no option here. We must succeed. Failure is not an option. So it's almost that energy that will bring you through with your advice. All of you have such brilliance. And I want to learn a little bit more about each of you. So Valeriana, tell us about who do you work with and what do you do with them?
Sure. So I work with a plethora of folks from different industries, ranging from educational institutions to nonprofits, to businesses, and also to corporations and individuals. The goal behind the work that I specifically do is really to interrupt harm, and specifically anti-Blackness, racism. While it's a grandiose mission, I am of the firm belief that that can only happen when folks, specifically those with privilege, who have lived experiences that are really contrary to folks who've experienced systematic oppression, if they also lean into that work too. So most of the time, the clients that I work with, or the folks who approach me or reach out to me, are folks navigating where we are specifically, I would say, in the civil rights chapter that I'd like to call, where a lot of folks have really been examining how systems have operated, how certain folks have been left out of conversations, and really an onus on accountability, how to do things right with policies, procedures, but even better yet, how to live it. And because it's a constant, and I would say an ongoing walk. You never fully arrive at really interrupting harm. I see this as always like a progressive thing where folks are leaning in, folks are learning, folks are being educated, but also using that to center a framework that is liberation oriented in their own communities, within their own households, and in their day-to-day relationships.
Oh, that's incredible work and very timely, and couldn't be at a better time. So tell us, how did you get into this work?
Wow, that's a really good question. I would say that this work called me. I'm a former refugee from the Republic of Angola. My heritage comes from the Ovembundu people group. I was born in Zambia, and at the age of 3, the civil war that had been happening in the country of Angola was impacting Angolan refugees who had sought refuge outside of Angola. And so my family actually had to migrate to Papua New Guinea in Australia. So I was raised in the Pacific. And I think having the exposure and learning from Indigenous folks there, and then eventually, moving to the United States. Initially, when I came here, I had this idea of I'm just going to go to college, get my degree, and kind of bounce, go back to my home country. And as life would have it, there were so many opportunities that opened up. And I've been on, I would say, kind of like a long journey with my immigration story. Long story short, I did get my green card 2 years ago. So every time I think about that, I'm pretty pumped. Just because I think that it has really allowed me to work alongside a plethora of different communities. And so in many ways, just sharing a little bit about my background and my story, I look at it that, in my family story, there has really been a constant theme, and that is really interrupting oppression. And I didn't fully understand it when I was younger, but as an adult, I have seen how when something is happening, naturally my instinct is to make sure that I am well informed, number one, and then number two, try to understand root causes. And I've always loved history. And so what I try to do is tie in historical themes, whether we look at what happened in terms of colonization in the continent of Africa, to the transatlantic slave trade, to the genocide of what happened to Native Americans in the United States of America. I tie all of those themes into oftentimes the things that folks have not truly reckoned with. And so what's happened is when we look at the symptoms now in our country and we examine that, we can't disassociate that with what has happened in the past. And I think coming to that reckoning and realizing that, there were things that were done wrong and they're oppressive in nature, and the systems that we are still navigating in so many ways still mirror that. So how are we all getting involved with interrupting that harm and centering a liberation-focused approach? And so, yeah, long story short, I would say it called me. And in many ways, it's like when I was younger, I remember my dad specifically saying, like, you're kind of a little bit of a freedom fighter. I remember also my third grade teacher specifically telling me and saying, you do your work, but you talk a lot. And at that time, in that period, when I was a little girl, it was pretty much considered when you were in class, you need to sit down and pay attention. But I was always asking the why. I was always trying to understand, but why is this being put in place? Why are we not examining root causes? How come these folks are being left out? And so
right.
Naturally, that journey took me here.
Thank you for looking at those causes, leaning into your journey. And I'd like to go over to Jacqueline and ask you a little bit about what you do, who you do it for, and a story of how you got into this work.
Certainly, yes. So I love working with women, as I said, single moms in particular. I know the challenges that being a single mom presents as you're trying to be the best you can for your family, but then also advance your own career. I too have a story of overcoming, and I actually talk about that in my personal memoir, When a Lie Becomes the Truth. And overcoming abuse, any type of abuse, or feeling any type of bondage can create its own issues. And so it can take time to really search your own soul and come to an awareness that you really do have what you need within you. I too like asking questions like, why is this the way it is? Why has that happened? And really search for the truth. We need truth now more than ever. And I am one to lead with love. I think that love, and I know that love is the strongest power there is. So regardless to what hurt you may have experienced, when you tap into the love within yourself and you learn to forgive and love yourself, that's where all the beauty emanates, right? And I do have a program called Love, Truth, and Transformation. It's an 8-week program where I guide people through the process of really focusing on gratitude, because no matter what you're going through, there's a lesson in it, and there's an opportunity to be grateful for that lesson. Sometimes, I heard somebody say that lessons sometimes come wrapped in sandpaper. It's not always comfortable, but it is available to us to get the lesson. And truth, there is no way out but through truth. And again, we need truth now more than ever. But telling yourself the truth, oftentimes we want to blame someone else for our circumstance. And even if there is room for someone else to be held responsible, ultimately, we're responsible for ourselves, for our own happiness. And when we get to a place where we can love ourselves and have the courage to tell the truth, to tell our own truth, to stand on the story and not be stuck in the story, that's where transformation happens. And Just for me to be here today is a miracle in and of itself. I don't take any day for granted because I know that it could have been another way. And having poured love into my daughter and to see her become the professional that she is, and then to focus on other women who are between the ages of 30 and 45, and to really pour into them, to empower them, because women are so powerful. However, oftentimes we give up our power for whatever reasons. Um, and then we're trying to figure out what to do and how to get to where we ultimately want to be. So I like to help women find their true joy, to reclaim their power so that they can live a life of authenticity unapologetically.
Yes, we're with you, both you and Valeriana. And now, Renee, share with us your work. Who do you work with? What do you do? And maybe a story about how you got there, because you alluded to some of it.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I'm a business adventure coach, and I work with leaders and entrepreneurs. And it's not necessarily people who kayak over Niagara Falls or climb mountains and those kinds of things, but those people who have an adventurous spirit. And to have an adventurous spirit, you really need to be willing to step out of your comfort zones and take some risks and go down a path you never saw yourself going. And think about those Sunday drives that people used to take. Certainly those are the things that my family did when I was a kid. And we would take Sunday drives and we had no idea where we were going, but we were willing to get in the car and go. It's the same sort of concept that I use oftentimes with people who get stuck in their business, who maybe are transitioning from one job to the next. Maybe they recognize that this is not the job they want and their desire is in a whole nother field. Then I'm the person that really helps them navigate that to get from one point to the next and sort of transition in that. And it's the whole person. It's not just the business aspect. It's their personal aspects and also their professional. So I used to be a professor of outdoor education for many years, and I used to coach students in climbing. I used to teach rock climbing, and to coach them into to go to the next pitch, to get to the top of that. And it's just a matter of working with what's going on in your head to get you to that next step. And the self-doubt and the worry and the question about, can I make this? Can I do this? Happens all the time with people, whether you're on a rock climb or whether you're just thinking about moving from one business to the next. So it's trying to navigate what's going on in someone's mind to help them believe and to overcome those self-doubts and those worries. I do that a couple of different ways. I do masterminding on the mountain, which is I take people on hikes, and we do masterminding because I find that nature is a great place to lend itself to informality and help people feel comfortable and vulnerable enough to be able to share. No one's in a business suit, no one's in a tie, no one's in a skirt, and no one has makeup. Well, maybe they do have makeup on, but essentially they feel comfortable and safe in the natural environment. So that's a way that I also coach, in addition to having a masterclass about my book, which is Achieving Your Potential, 15 Empowering Steps to Reach Each Summit. And a summit is anything that you wish it to be. It doesn't have to be a mountain summit, but it's a goal, a desire. And I really capitalize on desire and helping people to identify their desire, because oftentimes people don't know what their desire is. They're just navigating through life and trying to figure out who they are and what they want to do. And so I do that through this book and also through venues of hiking and coaching.
I can totally relate to the transformational process of being out in nature and on a rock climb. And that's really valuable for people, and that you've been able to translate your background into that. So great. Thank you. And Michelle, tell us about you. Who do you work with? What do you do? What inspires, lights you up? And how did you get there?
I call my life the divine setup. So I came to this country. My mom and I were undocumented immigrants that came from Liberia. And we ended up in the housing projects of New York City and lived through some real difficult times. And I remember using television as a way to escape some of my reality and look into lives and possibilities. And through that, and then going to college and just certain things I was exposed to, I began to reform my thinking, reform what possibilities were actually out there for me. And through that, I went through from, struggling to then paying and helping other people go to college and doing other things, and going from a struggling marriage to a successful marriage, going from no kids to children, becoming an entrepreneur. So all the things that at one time in life I wasn't sure was possible, I chose to defy my odds. And so it actually birthed the title, because I'm a featured author in the Voices of the 21st Century book, and my title of my chapter is called Defy. And I kind of talk about that journey. And so the work I'm doing now, I'm building a sisterhood with women. It's really hard at times. When you think about all the different things we talked about today, when you're doing it alone, it's harder. But when you have a sisterhood of women working together, women with like-mindedness, women who may be on different journeys, but the end result is we're choosing to succeed in the areas of our life that we want to develop in, and you have other sisters that are embracing you during that walk and be able to say, oh, I know this, I specialize in this, and coming together, that's the community that we have built and still building. And through that comes the pillars of what we call kingdom wealth, right? And so when I worked on Wall Street when I was 19 years old. So I interned on Wall Street, a position was created for me. And so based on my experiences, wealth used to be money. And I realized that I could be very rich and very poor at the same time, because if I'm poor in spirit, I'm poor in my relationships, I'm struggling. So the pillars of kingdom wealth for me is wealth that pertains to spiritual wealth, pertains to my health, the strength of my family, pertains to financial wealth. And so the platform that's now built is showing women, how do we navigate through the pillars of wealth, right? So that we have a holistic experience. So that thing of being that corporate CEO, but yet my family's falling apart, I don't have to live that. That doesn't have to be my reality. And so I'm having a lot of fun with women who are redefining wealth for themselves. And so we're growing in this community. Right now, we're on what we call the faith-filled journey. So I have a private Facebook group, and I go live with these women every other week. And I get a chance to coach these women. And we go from anywhere from looking at that woman in the mirror and identifying where we are and what we need to confront, to then building different goals and aspirations, and pretty much knowing that you have a community that's standing beside you, a sisterhood that's with you for this 12 months as you strive and you expect to succeed. So I'm really excited about the work we're doing and the growth that's taking place.
Wow, it's very exciting, the work that all of you are doing. And I love that you use the word sisterhood as well. That's what we have here at Women Speakers Association. I think each of you may have found that. And I wanted to hear from each of you just real briefly. I know we're getting into the top of the hour, but what is the value of Women Speakers Association to you, Valeriana?
I would say it's really the ability to network, gain exposure, learn from others, and also be mentored. Not even just direct mentorship, but even some of the articles and the things, commentary that's actually left by a lot of the members. I would say that's very advantageous. And also just learning around how to navigate, being a business owner, even writing your own book, to public speaking. There are a variety of topics that members typically post, share, and I think that that's so advantageous.
Mm-hmm. It truly is a collaboration. Thank you. And Jackie, what have you found has been the value for you?
I would say the opportunity to network, as Valeriana said. Also, it's the exposure to so many powerful women. There are so many women who are associated with this organization who have a long history of experience in speaking, as authors, as coaches, and to be able to connect with them is definitely a value, and have that opportunity to learn and grow. in a safe community in this sisterhood is invaluable.
Truly is. Thank you for being here. For those of you who want what these women have, go to joinwsa.com and you can learn more about what we offer and all the plethora of things. And Renee, what has been the value for you?
Well, for me, it's really seeking community with a group of women who are all on the same path. We all want to speak. We all want to bring value to other people. We all want to perhaps learn how to write a book and navigate through that. It's a platform for reaching out to other people that have skills and talents that perhaps you don't have. So it's a dual opportunity to bring value to this community of women and also to get value from the community. And that's what I'm seeking.
Oh, well said. Thank you. And Michelle, how about you? What is the value of Women Speakers Association?
A coach needs a coach. And so for someone that's been in the mortgage industry for 20 years and then being called to write a book that I never knew where to begin with, I have felt such a high level of support, the professionalism, the mentorship, as mentioned already, the podcast and all the different things that we're involved in has been so powerful in building, that next level and really helping to develop as an entrepreneur. So I'm really grateful for the exposure and for all the training and resources that the organization offers.
Well, thank you all for being here. And I agree, it's chock full of resources, sisterhood, collaboration. It's a platform where you can grow and thrive. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, ladies. We'll be back next week with another WSA-TV Premier Women show. Bye for now.